What would it feel like if you woke up tomorrow and you had no control over where you would sleep, what you would eat, or even the safety of yourself and your personal belongings? Well, this is the reality for people all over who are experiencing homelessness. And this was reality for me when my family was evicted and I went from sleeping in a comfy bed in my childhood home to the trunk of my SUV. That is where it all began. Hi again, my name is Jae Lange, and I use they, them pronouns. And today I would like to talk to you a little bit about something that is often dismissed in our society: the importance of balancing support and autonomy for people experiencing homelessness. I believe that there's a common misconception that simply providing a resource or a service is enough, and it's not. And today I came here to change that mindset. There are so many harmful misconceptions about people who are experiencing homelessness, and all of those contribute to the stigma and the discrimination that they face. One of the most damaging, in my opinion, is the belief that homelessness is a choice or that it's the result of laziness or of drugs. According to HUD, about 772,000 people lived without housing within the US just last year. 2 years ago in 2023. For context, let's look locally. Let's look at the Siegel Center and how big of a building that is. We would have to build 100 more Siegel Centers just to be able to fit every person that's experiencing homelessness. These people are not lazy. They do not all do drugs. They're not battling addictions. And they're not all in a mental health crisis. Other misconceptions include the assumption that every person experiencing homelessness is dangerous, dirty, or untrustworthy, and that is simply and blatantly ignoring the complex realities and the humanity of their situations. Their experiences could be yours in the blink of an eye. And in reality, homelessness can happen to literally anyone for factors like loss of income. Y'all know it only truly takes one lost week of wages to become housing insecure. Then you have medical emergencies, domestic violence, being kicked out of your family home due to your gender identity. You have aging out of the foster care system and natural disasters, among a long list of other causes. Not every person looks homeless, y'all, or fits into these stereotypes, which is why it's so important to remember the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would want to be done unto them. Most, if not all of us, have heard that before while growing up, but you never truly know what someone is experiencing or how they want to be supported unless you ask. I experienced housing instability most of my life, but it wasn't until I was a young adult that I was without a place to actually call home. What struck me the most during those years was how unheard and how unseen I felt. I worked very hard to keep up my appearances. I made sure I never wore the same clothes twice in a week. I always smelled nice. I showed up with a smile despite everything I was going through. And with all of that, my choices and my voice was still disappearing right along with my home. And although housing instability was all too familiar, losing everything for me, that was new. Living without a home meant facing countless daily challenges. I was privileged enough to have an SUV for a portion of time, and I maintained my employment. But even still, finding a safe place to sleep became a constant worry. Accessing basic necessities like food and hygiene products turned into a daily quest with limited funds and literally nowhere to cook. Physical and mental health care that often felt out of reach, and without a stable address, all of the resources felt impossible to receive. Even if I found some resources, I couldn't afford to take off of work because I wouldn't be able to survive if I lost any wages. These struggles were not just physical, they took a heavy mental and emotional toll, and those are still things that I deal with to this day. The systemic challenges that I faced were just as daunting. Affordable housing was scarce and still is, and it remains a constant struggle, with most places requiring proof of income that's 3 times the rent, along with double and even sometimes triple the security deposit. It gets worse if you have poor credit or problematic rental history. So according to the Eviction Lab, Our city is the second highest ranked in evictions in the entire US, and that's sitting at 11.44%. And we have 5 out of the top 10 all here in Virginia. So if you have an eviction, which a lot of people experiencing homelessness do, it's almost impossible to find someone who's willing to give you a second chance, which leads folks to try and get into programs and into shelters. But here in Richmond, the options for those shelters and housing support, they're extremely limited. A few that do exist, they have rules that tend to strip away that autonomy. They impose curfews. They do not allow partners to stay together without a child that's considered a family unit. They have a strict no pet policy, along with the fact that most shelters, if not all, have a strict ban on substance use, both inside and outside of the shelter, which is making it harder for individuals recovering from addiction to access care in a safe environment. Then we have rapid rehousing and other supportive services. And these are all underfunded, and individuals must navigate long waiting lists for emergency housing. Then there's employment opportunities that have and still are limited, particularly for folks who are facing barriers and discrimination for things like the way they dress or their personal hygiene, their gender identity, their physical, their mental ability. Despite all of that, if you're lucky enough to get matched to a program like I was, you may end up being given false hope, and it could do more harm than good, receiving unclear communication and unrealistic timeframes. I know personally, both from navigating through services and working with our city services, that resources like rapid rehousing, mental health care, domestic violence support, addiction support, permanent supportive housing, social services, and crisis management, they all remain chronically underfunded and understaffed, which leaves individuals stuck in a cycle of uncertainty, trauma, and homelessness. So this brings me to autonomy, the ability to make decisions about one's own life, and it's constantly being stripped away from those experiencing homelessness. Choices about where to sleep and what to eat and how to live, these are things that are frequently dictated by the availability of resources or the rules of the shelters, the programs, or even the friends that you were staying with. This lack of control is deeply, deeply disempowering. Autonomy is essential for mental health and our well-being, and when people have control over their lives, they experience a higher sense of self-esteem and a lower sense of stress and anxiety. And for folks who are experiencing homelessness, regaining this sense of autonomy is a key factor in achieving this long-term stability. The fundamental right to make decisions for yourself is something that we should all have. It fosters that sense of self-respect and value, which is all good for our well-being. So, how can y'all use your autonomy to honor the autonomy of someone else and someone who is experiencing homelessness? First, and in my opinion, this is the easiest. Treat people like people. Make eye contact. Don't just avoid it because you feel as if you have nothing to give. A smile, a nod, a hello. All of these things cost nothing, and they remind people that they are people and they are not invisible. Second, don't assume what someone needs. Instead of giving people things blindly, ask them, is there anything in particular that I can get for you today? Is there anything that you need? Don't just hand them a flyer for a resource or a sandwich. Ask them if they like information on resources first, and ask them what type of sandwiches do they eat. It's that simple. Third, support policies that prioritize autonomy. Programs that support housing first models don't make people prove that they deserve a home. They simply just give them one. And because people need a safe place to sleep, that is when they will be able to dream about how they can maintain that stability. And finally, if you donate, donate with dignity. Give clothes that are ready to wear, not the dirty stuff that you meant to throw out last week. If you wouldn't use it, wear it, or eat it, then why should anyone else? It is so important that we empower people to make their own choices. And when we do more than just provide somebody with that support or a sense of community. We provide an opportunity for them to remember that what they want and what they need matters just as much as the next person. The effectiveness of empowering individuals to make their own decisions is not just a personal belief. This is something that's actually backed by research. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, when we empower people experiencing homelessness to make decisions about their lives, they are more likely to achieve that stability and maintain it. So initiatives that prioritize dignity and respect, like Housing First, they've been proven to help individuals transition out of homelessness. I am living proof. I am living proof of what community support and regaining your voice can look like. My lived experience of housing instability and homelessness has led me to a career in advocacy, consulting, social work, and I get to focus on policies and interventions and best practices that promote autonomy, restorative justice, harm reduction, community empowerment, equity, and dignity. All in the effects to help end homelessness, not only for our community, but for communities all over our cities, our country, our state, the world, everywhere. Housing is a human right, and it's about time that we started treating people like people and working hard to ensure that everyone has a chance to have a home. While yes, I'm standing here with you today on the stage, I can still feel what it feels like to be unheard and powerless. And I know the constant fear of experiencing autonomy being snatched away from me if I were to ever experience homelessness again. And that is why I've been working extremely hard over the past 10 years to help give a voice to those who are often overlooked and to help advocate for their rights. This road has by no means been easy, and I'm extremely thankful that I have people who remind me that I am a leader, I'm an innovator, a creator, I am a change maker. And as we continue together to break the stigma surrounding homelessness, we will promote further empathy, understanding, and actionable change. So I urge each of you to remember that everyone experiencing homelessness has a story. They all have their own voice, and they all have a right to their own dignity and autonomy. And by balancing support with autonomy, we will be able to foster trust, empower individuals, as well as create lasting connections that lead to equitable change. I know that we can end homelessness, y'all. One community, one family, one student, one human at a time. So let's work together to create a world where everyone is seen, heard, respected. A world where people are simply treated like people. Thank you.